The silent language of death, secrets carved in stone. From the earliest civilizations, human beings have feared only one thing more than death itself: being forgotten. Across centuries, cultures and empires, people carved their names into stone, hoping that the living would whisper them long after their voices had faded. These carved messages, known as sepulchral inscriptions, are far more than epitaphs. They are conversations between the living and the dead, messages meant for gods, descendants, strangers, and eternity. The ancient world, birthplace of memory and stone. In the ancient world, death was not allowed within the walls of the city. A law from 450 BCE in the Roman Republic, the Law of the 12 Tables, commanded that burials must take place outside the settlement. And so, roads like the Via Appia became avenues of the dead. Along the roads stood stone stelae, family tombs, urn fields, mausoleums, columns, pyramids, and richly carved sarcophagi. Beneath the surface, hidden under cities, lay hypagia and columbaria, underground chambers containing hundreds of urns and burial niches. Some held ashes, others intact bodies. These burial spaces, called loculi, were sealed with stone slabs bearing inscriptions. Some mention only a name and age. Others record donations, the number of family burials, or poetic farewells known as carmina epigraphica. A typical Roman epitaph began with D.O.M, dis Manibus, to the spirits of the dead. After this dedication followed name, family origin, social rank, sometimes military service or public office. Dates were rarely included. What mattered was who the person had been, not when they died. Burial customs differed across the empire. In the East, people preferred inhumation, burying the body intact. In the West and in North Africa, cremation was common, with ashes stored in urns within columbaria. Wealthy families used marble or travertine sarcophagi carved with mythological scenes, heroes, or portraits of the deceased. Roman law protected burial sites. Terms like locus religiosus or locus purus marked the land as sacred, never to be sold, built upon, or disturbed. To violate a grave meant angering both the law and the gods below. From pagan tombs to Christian hope. As Christianity spread through the Roman Empire, it did not immediately erase pagan customs but transformed them. Christians buried their dead in catacombs, often near the tombs of saints and martyrs. The language of inscriptions changed. Dedications to pagan gods were replaced with symbols of salvation, the dove symbolizing peace of the soul, the palm branch as victory over death, the Chi-Rho monogram of Christ, letters Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, etc. Instead of dis manibus, inscriptions began to say hic requiescit in pace, here rests in peace, or dormit in Christo, he sleeps in Christ. Titles such as bishop, presbyter, deacon, or servant of God appeared. Dates were still uncommon, but the tone changed to one of hope. Death was no longer seen as an end but as a passage. The Middle Ages, when the dead lived among us. After the fall of Rome, Europe entered the Middle Ages, and the dead returned to the heart of living communities. Burials moved into towns and villages. Churches became both geographical and spiritual centers of death. Two burial practices coexisted. First, row cemeteries lay outside towns, where people were buried chronologically, one after other. Second, churchyard burials and tombs inside churches, where the wealthy and powerful sought to rest as close as possible to the altar, believing proximity to sacred ground increased their chances at salvation. Churches soon filled with the dead. Stone slabs covered floors, carved with full-length figures, coats of arms, and inscriptions. Beneath them were vaults or simple graves. The poor were buried in churchyards. As space ran out, bones were exhumed and moved to ossuaries to make room for new burials. During plagues, mass graves were quickly dug. When epidemics ended, burials returned to churchyards. Medieval society could not imagine cities without their dead. Renaissance, a dialogue with antiquity. During the Renaissance, Europe rediscovered the classical world, including its language of death. Tomb inscriptions revived Roman formulas but adapted them to Christianity. The inscription D.O.M, Deo Optimo Maximo, to God, the best and greatest, became common. Tombs turned into works of art. Inscriptions described virtues, lineage, victories, and prayers. Sculptors portrayed the deceased in armor, noble dress, or kneeling in prayer. The inscription moved from the center to the stone's border, framing the effigy. From the 16th century onward, more biographical details appeared. Family emblems, coats of arms, and biblical verses were added. Inscriptions began to include the year or exact date of death, using the Anno Domini formula. Death spoke through poetry, architecture, and Latin once again. What makes a tomb more than just a grave? A sepulchral monument had to fulfill certain roles. It had to represent the individual, their identity, profession, beliefs, family, and social position. It had to communicate with the living, asking for prayers, proclaiming legacy, or reminding visitors of mortality. And it had to be placed where people would see it, near the altar, in the church aisle, or along the main cemetery path. This led to a diversity of monuments. There were flat gravestones and large stone slabs covering entire graves. Tomb structures, called tombas, stood above burials, sometimes empty like cenotaphs that honored someone buried elsewhere. Epitaphs were wall plaques that did not always mark the actual grave. Sarcophagi were stone coffins used in late antiquity and early medieval times. Some families built chapels or mausoleums. In later eras, obelisks and pyramids reappeared. During funerals, temporary structures like funeral shields or castrum doloris honored the dead. Enlightenment and modernity, moving death to the edge of town. By the 17th and 18th centuries, city churchyards were overcrowded. Concerns about hygiene, disease, and urban planning led rulers to move cemeteries outside city walls. During the Enlightenment, old beliefs in bodily resurrection were questioned. Faith shifted toward spiritual salvation. Governments regulated burials, limiting extravagant funerals and promoting simplicity and cleanliness. Yet the desire to be remembered remained. Tombs still bore inscriptions of grief, love, or pride. Only the location changed, from crowded churchyards to quiet, planned cemeteries. By the late 19th century, cremation returned after being abandoned for centuries. Fire again became a passage between body and memory. Ashes were placed in urns, stored in columbaria, mausoleums, or family vaults, just as in ancient Rome. The eternal voice of stone. So, what is a sepulchral inscription? It is not merely a name on a tomb. It is a message across time. It speaks of how people saw death, with fear, faith, pride, humility, or love. It reveals what they hoped would survive them, their name, lineage, virtues, or soul. When we read these inscriptions, we do not only study history. We hear voices of individual lives. A father grieving a child. A soldier honored by his comrades. A wife promising eternal love. A nobleman warning, whoever disturbs this grave shall be cursed. These stones are not silent. They whisper, I was here. I lived. I loved.